After Din Djarin presents the ancient Mandalorian weapon known as the Darksaber to his leader, the Armorer, his claim to the saber is immediately challenged. A man named Paz Vizsla of the Mandalorian House Vizsla tries to claim the saber based on ancestry and lineage, putting up a fierce struggle against Mando. But why did the Darksaber get heavier for Mando as the fight continued? Well, let's find out that and why it also got lighter when Sabine Wren used the blade. So before we get into it, make sure you subscribe for more awesome Star Wars lore content. During his fight with fellow children of the Watch Member Paz Vizsla, and even against the Bulldog mob members on Glavis, Mando came across a very interesting phenomenon which is unique to the Darksaber. The weapon actually felt heavier in his hands, even to a point where he couldn't even hold up the Darksaber. The ancient weapon began dragging on the ground and took considerable force to even hold up. Considering this even happened to Paz Vizsla, who can hold much heavier weapons, this effect is obviously very strong. Now this is the exact same thing that happens to Sabine Wren in Star Wars Rebels after she obtains the blade and begins training with Din Djarin. In that series, Sabine Wren and Ezra Bridger, a fellow member of her Rebel Cell and Jedi Padawan, travel to the dark world of Dathomir. This is the homeworld of Darth Maul, who was the current holder of the Darksaber at the time. After exploring the planet and encountering the Night Sister witches, they stumbled into Darth Maul's lair. Inside Maul's lair was an assortment of disturbing pictures and relics, along with the famed Darksaber just sitting there for the taking. By this point in the timeline, the Jedi had fallen and the Empire had risen. So with Maul's defeat at the Siege of Mandalore, he had completely lost interest in ruling the Mandalorian people any longer, allowing Sabine and Ezra to take the blade from him without a fight. It was at this point that Sabine Wren became the holder of the Darksaber and the true ruler of Mandalore, at least according to the tradition at the time. Despite not having won the Dark Blade in single combat with the current holder, Sabine was the de facto ruler. This whole situation actually came as a stunning shock to the Mandalorian people, as nobody could believe that Maul had really been defeated and lost the Darksaber. But either way, this is where the connections to Din Djarin's Darksaber training begin. Knowing that Sabine would become a massive target for prospective challenges to the Darksaber, Din Djarin, a Jedi Knight who survived Order 66, began to train her. And it was during this training that she experienced the exact same strange phenomenon as Mando. The Darksaber was heavy and refused to cooperate with her movement. This problem was only solved once Sabine began to connect with the blade and allow it to become an extension of herself rather than a simple tool. Sabine needed to fight with it and not against it. She was knocked to the ground many times before this got through to her, but eventually she accepted the blade and its power, reducing its weight significantly. Sabine was very pleased with her progress and the fact that the blade was getting much lighter, but this wasn't the full answer. There was something more that Sabine needed to do in order to completely connect with the Darksaber. Sabine had to confront a major event from her past and accept what she had done. This clearly sounds very Jedi-like, which makes a lot of sense since we know it was crafted by the first Mandalorian Jedi. For Sabine, she had to confront her traumatic separation from her family and the disgrace that she brought onto Clan Wren. She defected from the Imperial Academy as a young girl after witnessing the Empire's atrocities, and as a result she brought shame to her clan for doing so. Not only this, but she was forced to face the fact that she was behind a horrendous superweapon which specifically targeted the Mandalorian people. During her time at the Imperial Academy, Sabine developed a horrible abomination known as the Arc Pulse Generator, which could melt Mandalorians within their Beskar armor.
I built weapons, terrible weapons! But the Empire used them on Mandalore, on friends, on family, people that I knew. They controlled us through fear. Mandalore! Fear of weapons I helped create. I helped enslave my people. I wanted to stop it. I had to stop it. I spoke out. I spoke out to save them. To save everyone!
The superweapon, codenamed Duchess, had a mode which could only target Beskar plating, meaning Sabine literally created a weapon which could be used to wipe out the Mandalorian people. Kanan taught her to confront this fear and her part in it, allowing her to connect with the blade and therefore reduce its weight in her hand. And this need to let go from attachment is the exact same thing that the Armorer told Mando that he needed to do in order to connect with the blade and make it lighter. He obviously still has a very deep connection to Grogu, and we see that throughout Chapter 5 of the Book of Boba Fett, with just how much he misses him. He sees Grogu in the Rodian child on the freighter and even shapes the little gift wrap for him into the shape of his head. It is because of this attachment and unwillingness to let go of the past that causes the Darksaber to furiously weigh down on Mando. He simply can't connect and make the blade part of himself unless he confronts the decision to let Grogu go and stay with Luke and accept it. As the teachings of Din Djarin told Sabine, the wielder of the Darksaber has all of their thoughts, emotion and energy flow through the crystal as if it is a part of themselves. If the wielder hasn't made their own peace, they are not worthy to wield the blade, and therefore it will become a burden to them. But that leaves us with another question. How does the blade do this? How does the Darksaber connect with its holder despite most normal lightsabers just being simple defensive tools with no connection to the Force apart from the Kyber crystal determining its color? Well, the Darksaber is not a regular lightsaber. It likely has an Obsidian Crystal at its core rather than traditional Kyber, which is something much more closely akin to Mandalorian culture. In so many ways, Paz Vizsla attempted to blend his Mandalorian roots with his Jedi roots, so an Obsidian Crystal is really the perfect choice. We know that in canon, Obsidian itself is an inherently dark side material, just like how certain planets are inherently attuned to the dark side like Dathomir, or even Jeddah for the light side. This connection to the dark side makes Obsidian Crystals produce red blades immediately, without the need for a Force user to bleed it through the Force. Usually, all red lightsaber crystals in canon have to be bled through the Force by their user, but for Obsidian, it's just natural. Knowing this, it might be possible that the Obsidian Crystal combined with some type of Beskar crystal or other internals produces the infamous black blade of the Darksaber. And this Obsidian Force crystal may be how the Darksaber determines its weight for the holders. Because it's connected to the Force, it may look deeply to get a true picture of the holder's state of attachment and emotion. Now, this leaves the question of why did the same thing happen to Paz Vizsla? Well, it's exactly the same mechanism. Paz Vizsla is clearly carrying a lot of burden and trauma for being one of the only 3 members of the Children of the Watch left. His entire tribe has been wiped out, and he hasn't made peace with this fact. Not to mention that because of his ancestry being part of Clan Vizsla, he probably believes that he has a birthright to the Darksaber, just like we see demonstrated in the episode. Paz most likely thinks that he can just wield the blade without any sort of guidance or training, which as we know is just not the case. As for why Darth Maul and Moff Gideon were able to wield the blade with ease, it could just be that they can suppress those attachments using the dark side. Rather than forgiving themselves for the things they've done in the past, these two are the type to simply not care. With Maul, that would be through the dark side, and with Gideon, just plain arrogance. Now, Sabine needed a Jedi to teach her how to use the Darksaber effectively despite not being one herself. But considering it was literally crafted by a Jedi, Paz Vizsla, this makes a ton of sense. Kanan Jarrus trained Sabine, so Mando clearly needs someone of that skill set to teach him how to control the weapon, both physically and emotionally. So who will that be? Well, I think the only realistic option for this era of the galaxy is Luke Skywalker himself. We know that he's currently training Grogu and off traversing the galaxy, so they're bound to meet back at some point. Mando misses Grogu deeply, and we were left off with a huge cliffhanger telling us that he wants to visit a little friend. When he goes to visit this little friend, Luke will be there, and it might just be the perfect time to get a Trials of the Darksaber type training session, mirroring what happened in Rebels with Sabine Wren and Kanan Jarrus. Another very big wildcard option, which would be absolutely huge, is Mace Windu. I really doubt Mace is going to show up at this point, and it's probably not a good idea to bring him back from the dead, but with all of his skills and Jedi knowledge, he would be the perfect person to train Din Djarin with the Darksaber. Of course, he'd have to answer many questions about where he's been, what he's been up to, which does make it very tough. Although, if there's going to be any show that you bring him back in, you'd have to do it in the Book of Boba Fett, considering his long and dark history with the Fett family. All the way back from the Battle of Geonosis to the many assassination attempts on him at the hands of Boba Fett. So that is the true reason why the Darksaber instantly got lighter for Sabine Wren, but heavier for Din Djarin when he used it. Let me know how you think Mando will remedy this problem in the upcoming episodes, or in The Mandalorian Season 3. Remember to leave a like and subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks so much for watching, really hope you enjoyed the video. Cheers guys, hope to see you in the next one. Comment.